on difficult projects where all other teams, hundreds of other teams, completely failed. So what people are going to learn is that when you as a leader develop emotional competency skills, you are going to achieve things that other leaders without those skills cannot. And over a period of time, this is going to take generations, over a period of time, the competent people will stand out and be promoted. And it's just going to take, this is all new science. So it's going to take a time. We got to overcome 150 years of bad science, Freud primarily, and and get rid of all that old thinking that is wrong, and start adopting what we are learning in neuroscience.
And do you think that the fact that businesses are more attuned to that makes them more aware of that aspect? I know that most of the people who leave the organization will usually do that because they don't like their managers. So I know that,
Right.
and it's related to the fact that they don't connect to them emotionally, or sometimes even more like even abusive relationship between the managers and the workers. So how do you see companies really understanding that or taking that
Well,
direction?
that's a great question. I think that you're right. We've been going through, with a pandemic, we've been going through what people are calling the Great Resignation, where workers are leaving their employers. And the biggest reason they're leaving their employers is, of course, work-life balance, but also because they're just tired of bad managers. And the problem that companies have had for a long, long time is that they promote their best workers to managers without giving them any training. And then they want them to manage. And now they're incompetent because they're no longer in charge of doing, they're in charge of leading, and they don't have any leadership skills. And so they just fall back on old instinct, which is micromanaging, abusing, yelling, screaming, shouting, all of that stuff. And here's and what's amazing to me is that the corporate world doesn't want to invest in leadership development. Did you know in the United States Army, a 19-year-old corporal who wants to become a sergeant, a staff sergeant, has to go through 30 days of basic leadership training before even qualifying for sergeant school. 19 years old, and they got to go through 30 days of leadership training.
Yeah.
How many companies put an employee that they're going to promote to a manager through 30 days of leadership training? None. They see it as a waste of time and money. And yet the U.S. Army sees this as essential for developing its non-commissioned officers.
Yeah. It's
Frankly,
very
I think the
similar
U.S.
in
Army has
Israel.
got it right, and the rest of the world has got it wrong. And until corporate America decides that investing in its best people and getting them trained up as real leaders, not as just people who maintain schedules, we're going to continue to suffer from this problem. And right now here in the United States, employment is very low. I was just talking to a colleague of mine the other day who said he's got $1.5 million in open payroll that he can't fill positions on. $1.5 million. And it's a pretty good sized company here in Central California, and they just cannot find people to work. So,
Yeah.
and part of the problem is that who wants to work for a company where you've got to work for an asshole, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I think that people measure their time differently after these 2 years, and they're thinking, where do I want to invest my time? Where
That's
do I
right.
want to be? And it's
That's
so
right.
important. And it seems that, like what you said about really making people as better leaders, I think it's connected to what we talked at the beginning. The fact that we are so into the cognitive abilities. If somebody is so smart, it means that we should hire him and give him a promotion to be a manager because he's so smart, he's so doing his work so well. I know, in sales, in coding, in design, it doesn't matter. And actually, the fact that they're so talented in that doesn't mean anything about their capability as a leader. And
Exactly.
how do they manage people? It doesn't mean anything. And,
That's right.
and, and sometimes even vice versa. The people who are very connected and they know people, they stay behind in many cases. They are not really hired to be promoted and to get to a higher level.
That's exactly correct. I think what companies have to do is they have to reevaluate how they want to promote non-leadership people who are high performers, but do not have the aptitude or the desire to learn how to be leaders and don't want the responsibility, how to create a track for them to, for example, being a non-leader vice president, where they don't have responsibilities of leadership, but they do have responsibilities to mentor and to pass their knowledge on and to be teachers, but they don't have the responsibility to lead. And maybe companies should be rethinking different tracks within their organizations. Some people can be groomed to be leaders because they've got an aptitude or desire to do it and are willing to go through the training and the self-development it takes to be effective. Other people don't have that desire. They just want to keep doing what they're doing, but they're happy being in a master position where they've got mastery over skills and they're going to bring along the people below them and train and mentor them up. In fact, Mercedes-Benz, Daimler has that program with their master technician program. In the United States, every major Mercedes-Benz dealership has to have at least one master technician. And this is a person who's gone through years, decades of training. Not a leader, but works it can solve any problem on any Mercedes automobile, and is basically in the dealership training and mentoring all the younger technicians to bring them up. And this person makes $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, which is a lot of money for that kind of a position. But Mercedes has recognized we can't take these people who are great technicians and make them into service managers. It doesn't work. What we can do is promote them up. They make a really high salary with a lot of great benefits, but they are master mechanics and they train the journeymen and the apprentices underneath them.
Yeah.
And that's the model I think that companies have to start following.
Yeah, I totally agree. It touches like 2 points that comes to my mind. First, my husband is a very good technician, but he doesn't want to be a manager and
Right.
he stays in the same place, while many people who work with him do want to be promoted, and the only way to be promoted is to have people underneath you. And another thing that comes to my mind is the fact that in order to feel that we're achieving more, which is something very prominent today, we need more, we want to get to a higher level. You always need to be hired to get to a higher level position, and more people underneath you. You don't have any other path to get there.
That's right. And and that old hierarchical promotion concept is not working, because have you heard of the Peter Principle? This is an idea that so there's a researcher back in the 1960s, Lawrence J.